Fight fans, welcome back to Carl Prusa MMA. Today with a returning guest to the platform. My guest making his UFC return this week in Azerbaijan. He's taking on Yakhyaev. He is Juicebox. He's Mr. Julius Walker. Juicebox, what's up, my friend? How are you?
Dude, things are great. Loving it out here in Baku, and I'm happy to be back on.
Absolutely, man. So, yeah, here we are, fight week, taking on Yakhyaev over in Azerbaijan. What's it like over there?
Dude, it's freaking sweet. The city in general it's insane. You're right on the Caspian Sea, so you can go walk by the water, walk around the city. The architecture is crazy. The people are really nice. There's good food that's not expensive. It's crazy, like the mixture of historic architecture and modern architecture, and you look out in every direction, and it feels like it just doesn't end. So, like, this place is really freaking cool.
So last time you were on here, we were getting ready at the time to take on Saltybayev. Obviously, that didn't turn out. We took a Dustin Jacoby instead. What was that like, getting a last-minute fight like that?
Yeah, so I've definitely had a couple now. My UFC debut was, I think, almost actually the exact same like time frame. If I remember correctly, it was like when the fight got switched to Jacoby, it was like the Thursday before, or like the Thursday of the week before fight week. It was like 9 or 10 days out. So it was, it's one of those things where, like, as a fighter, I've had so many people. This will be my 20th MMA fight in total. I've had so many people pull out, and it's just something that happens. We all train hard, and I know for a fact that Saltybayev is not one of those dudes that's just going to be pulling out of fights. Like, he's a legit competitor, and I'm sure that he had a pretty serious injury if he had to pull out.
Absolutely. Obviously that last one didn't go your way. There were some positive moments in there for you. What are some of the things that we're going to take away to grow from that?
Honestly, dude, the biggest takeaway that I had from that fight is that there's no substitute for experience. I think that DJ really showed me what a veteran presence can look like in the octagon. Because if I go back to like the start of the second round, and he seemed so unfazed, and then the fight was over, and he said in some interviews it was like it was about the most tired he'd ever been in a fight, and that it was just such an exhausting first round. And being in there with him, I would have had no clue of that, just because of the veteran presence that he kept in the octagon. He didn't let like any of the early adversity of the first round phase him, and he stuck to the game plan, and he got the job done. And it kind of showed me, like, if and the reason he was able to do that is because he knows exactly who he is, and he's been doing this at the highest level for so long. And it kind of showed me that that's kind of what it takes to win fights at this level. Is you're not just going to go in there and have a little bit of success and have guys fold. You're gonna have to really stick to your guns and keep it going. And I think that's one of the number one things I took from that.
Throughout your career, man, you've never been afraid to fight high-level guys. When you look at your topology, you're always finding guys with winning records. You've only fought names in the UFC. You took a short notice fight against Alonzo Menafield to make your debut. Have you always had that mentality of whoever, whenever, anytime, any place, anywhere?
Dude, since I started fighting, man, I'd say I've always been pretty down to fight pretty much whoever. Especially because for me, I've always felt like it's my job to fight, not to pick and choose. And then when I got into the UFC, I was like, for one, we're in the UFC. We're supposed to be the best fighters in the world. So, like, we need to be we need to be willing to compete with whoever's put in front of us. And that's kind of the mindset that I've taken. And then also, like, every fight that I've taken, I've had the confidence that I believe that I can get in there and win the fight. So I've never been offered an opponent where I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can beat him. You know what I mean? So and at the end of the day, if fighters being real with themselves, they know that on any given night, like, it's just whoever's better that night. So I've always kind of kept that mentality, and I believe that I'm going to be the better one on June 27th.
You're from Missouri originally, but since you've been in the UFC, you've been doing a lot of training in Vegas over at Extreme Couture. What's that added to your game? What's it been like training with all those killers up there?
Man, so actually so my first 3 UFC fights, I was still primarily training in Missouri. I was going out there for maybe like a week at a time at the most. In this fight, I fully changed it up. I went all in. I went out there for, a full 2 months, little over full 2 months, maybe even a little more in preparation. Fully switched over my camp to Extreme Couture with the support of, my guys back home at Team Fusion in Springfield, Missouri, and it's been huge for me. For one, just being in the room with elite fighters on a daily basis, having elite sparring partners. Whenever I was talking to my wife about it because she was asking me, and I was like, when I go to wrestle, whoever I'm wrestling with probably wrestled D1. Like my main wrestling partner wrestled D1. My Alex Polizzi, all my main sparring partners are UFC fighters. Like I was sparring Johnny Walker and Sean Strickland and Zach Reese. And I mean, early in my camp, I was sparring Francis and Ming Yang because they had fights coming up. And it was just a really high level stuff. Like I was doing jiu-jitsu and rolling with really good black belts. Like got a lot of rolls with Vince Pizzuto, Nick Hartman, a few other black belts who are really solid. So I was just blessed to have that level of competition around me. And it really pushed me to grow as a fighter on a daily basis. And then beyond that, there's the elite coaching. Like I got a lot of help from Ray Sefo. I got a ton of help from Eric Nixick, a ton of help from Jason Manley. So like Brian Harper, I had all these dudes that were elite, that were pouring into me and helping me out. My strictly conditioning coach, Taylor Ramsdale's top notch. And at the end, like my coaches back home are elite too. And it's one of those things where like I've just had so many good people helping me out. I feel like it's caused me to grow as a fighter so much. Like it's almost you almost would have had to be an idiot to not get better with what I've been doing.
Last time you were on here, we talked about all the sacrifices that it takes to get to a promotion like the UFC. And I think there's a big misunderstanding. A lot of people think you make it to the UFC, you're set. Those sacrifices still continue. Obviously, you move yourself halfway across the country. A lot of people are so worried about gaining the UFC. Once you win, you have to go those sacrifices to stay in the UFC, man. Talk about that grind.
Dude, I 100% believe that to be the case, and the other thing about it is like, I think here's the thing. Whenever you get into the UFC, you have to prove that you belong in the UFC because, you go from fighting guys on the regional scene to fighting guys at the UFC level. It doesn't matter who you are. It's a different level. And we've even seen this with guys that come in from like Bellator and I guess Bellator's gone, but PFL, and guys that come in from ONE FC and, all these other different promotions. And occasionally they'll struggle because, I mean, it's just a different level, man. The UFC is the absolute best of the best fighters in the world. So you've got to be willing to do whatever it takes. And like I said, you have to prove that you belong in the UFC. So while you're proving that you belong in the UFC, you're not rich. You know what I mean? So there's a lot that goes into it. But for me, like, dude, this is the best job in the world. Like, I get to do something where I can, for one, track visual progress. You know what I mean? There's incentives for me to work harder and to succeed. It's not like I just get paid by the hour or have a salary. If I work my ass off for a year and I'm super successful, I'm not going to go into the office and say, congrats, you got a 3% raise. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at how UFC contracts work, dudes they'll double their money if they have, a couple good fights in a row, maybe triple their money if they have a few good fights in a row. And you're also eligible. Like, dude, any finish is $25K now. You go out there and you put on a banger, you're getting $100K. Like, it's really cool. And just the fact that I get to go to the gym and train with dudes and stuff and like just have a good time, man. Like, it's really cool.
For you, how do you think you have grown and evolved as a person from this journey you've been on?
I think honestly, I have a ton in so many different ways. It's put a lot of things in perspective. I think one thing with fighting and with life in general is you can be really, really focused on the results, and that being like the wins and the losses and the concrete results. But it's really, really important in life to focus on the process of getting there, because at the end of the day, that's what brings you the results that you get. And if you focus on the results in life, it can be really tough. And another thing is like, dude, you can put in the best camp of your life and lose, and you can put in a shitty camp and win. So like the results don't always necessarily reflect the amount of work that you put in. And I think that after these years of fighting and some of the experiences I've had, it's kind of showed me that like just focus on getting better and compete with yourself, and good things will happen.
You know, when you were playing basketball at Drury University, do you ever think maybe one day you'd be in Azerbaijan fighting all these big name fighters?
I will say I definitely wouldn't have thought that I'd be in Azerbaijan, but I will say, dude, if you could go back, I've got buddies from college that they would laugh, but like I liked fighting in college. I remember my freshman year, I'd never actually had any real training or ever fought before. My freshman year of college basketball, and me and one of my roommate Cam Potts, me and him used to want to freaking slap box and shit like that all the time, and some of my other teammates, we would always want to wrestle. I was always that guy that wanted to do that shit. And I had a teammate named Lucas who had a little bit of a martial arts experience and combat experience, and he started kind of training us. And I remember one time we freaking staged a little. Me and Cam threw on these gloves, and we staged a fight in the little courtyard of our apartment complex. And it was hilarious, dude. I need to see if I can get Lucas to send me that video, and I'll post some of it, because like you guys it's so funny, because it's me with like no actual training out fighting, and I look like so bad. And hell, dude, some of my fights with training I look bad in. So like, dude, you should see me without training. Bro, it's freaking hilarious. So maybe I would have thought that I'd be doing some type of fighting, some type of combat sports, but I don't know if I thought I was going to be fighting in Azerbaijan in the UFC, and that if only, a few years later I'd be fighting some of the top guys in the world.
You know, what do you want your kids to take away from this crazy journey you've been on?
Dude, I would say the biggest thing is that, everybody says stuff like this: work hard, you can achieve your dreams, this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, like, try to find something that you enjoy doing, and don't be afraid to just like dive all in at that, even if it seems ridiculous and it seems like a completely unrealistic result. You know what I mean? Just find something that you love to do and dive in and do that. Like, don't waste your life doing stuff that you don't have a passion for. Obviously, you're going to have to find a way to provide for yourself and sustain yourself, but even if your passion doesn't necessarily provide for you and sustain you, like, dude, find a way to have some type of passion that you're able to work hard and invest your time into, because it's very, very fulfilling.
Absolutely. So you're getting ready, taking on Yakhyaev here when you make your return. The guy's been known to be a big name prospect. Overall, what do you think of him as an opponent?
Dude, I think that he's a very, very solid opponent. He's a very, very solid prospect. He's well rounded. He's pretty solid everywhere. He's got some pretty good striking. He's got. It appears that his grappling is potentially a strong suit, I would say. I feel like he kind of uses the striking initially, but it's probably gonna. And he kind of leans on his grappling, because he does have a real good grappling base. And he's a talented fighter. He seems to have, pretty solid physicality for the division. And he's young. I'm almost certain that this is the first time in my entire career I fought somebody younger than me. I'm 26, so about to be 27 in a month, and he is 25. So, he's got all the time in the world to become the top guy. But I truly believe that right now it's my time, and his will be maybe a little bit later.
You mentioned in the Dustin Jacoby fight, one thing that got you was the experience. Coming into this one, it looks like you've had more time in the cage than he has. You think that's going to go in your favor?
I do think that goes in my favor. I think that I've fought a little bit tougher opposition than he has overall. I've definitely fought tougher opposition in the UFC. We have a common opponent, but beyond that, the other guy that he fought, and it was Cerqueira, we both beat him, and that guy didn't win a single fight in the UFC. And then Ribeiro, the other guy that he beat, is like 2-5 or 2-6 in the UFC or something like that. So he hasn't really fought any of the guys like some people like Menafield or Jacoby. I fought a Menafield and a Jacoby, and at the end of the day, I did lose both of those fights. But for one, with the Menafield fight, I mean, I literally won it on one judge's scorecard. It was a split decision. Every single round of that fight was close. There wasn't a dominant round from any fighter in that fight. Me and him were very, very close throughout that fight, and it was 9 days notice. And I can tell you, I've came a very long way since that fight, considering it was my UFC debut. And I look at what I was doing in preparation was very different. Didn't have the resources I do now. Wasn't even able to completely train full time. And then the Jacoby fight, that was I lost and even sadly got finished. But it's like, dude, I did very, very well in that first round, won it on all three judges' scorecards. Like, I've gotten in there and competed with some of the best guys in the world, and I don't think I've truly been dominated by anybody. So we'll see how this one goes.
You know, you already talked about one of the exciting aspects of this new Paramount era we're in. You can mess around and get like $100,000 bonus. You know, when you look at this one on paper, he likes to go out there and get finishes. You're not scared of a fight as well. You like to go out there. You like to bang it out. You like to go for the finish yourself. You feel like this one's got 100K written all over it?
Dude, I really do think that it does. We're both big guys too, so I know for a fact we're both capable of rocking each other and dropping each other. You know what I mean? If either one of us connects clean, the other guy's probably sitting their ass down for a second. So, and really, both of us like to fight at a high pace. He comes out and presses the action immediately. I come out and typically press the action pretty quickly. If you look through my career, there's not a ton of backing up. And if you look through his career, there's not a ton of backing up. So I think it's one of those fights where we should collide pretty early, and we'll see what happens from there.
Absolutely. You know, with the big win over here, you proved to be 2-2. You've already got your feet wet in the UFC. Is this the fight that takes it to the next level? Does the climb to the top start here?
Dude, I 100% think so. I think that the experience that I've gotten in my first three fights was the experience I needed. I think the experience of, because for this camp, I was away from my family for the whole 2 months. So I've barely seen my wife and kids in the last 2 months. I've just been focused on training this whole time. And I think that that's really been huge for my growth as a fighter and as a person. I think that I'm at a point where mentally and physically I am ready to go on a little bit of a run. I've got 3 fights after this fight. I'll have 2 more fights left on this deal. So I'm looking to really to get a couple really dominant finishes and start looking to maybe, like, here's the thing, especially with these new rankings. Did you see these new rankings they've just dropped? Now my 2 losses are to number 11 in the world. DJ's up to number 11 in the world, and I believe Menafield's 13 or 14 or something like that. So like I've the 2 guys that I've beat are in the top 15. I've had 2 opportunities to where I could be in the top 15 right now. Things went a little bit differently. So I think if I go out there and finish this fight, and obviously I'm not looking past them, but if I'm able to put together another good performance in my next fight, I'll be in a position where it's I'm should be getting pretty close to being able to challenge for the top 15 again and start really making a name for myself in this division and in this sport.
You know, you mentioned a really good point there. The UFC rankings got a total facelift, if you will. Really looks pretty cool what they're doing here. They're looking at different metrics like the outcomes, strength of oppositions, the method of victories, how active you've been. What do you think of this?
So with the rankings, man, there's no way to do it perfectly. Our sport it's not like team sports, and I think that's one thing that confuses a lot of people whenever they look at the way that things work sometimes. Like our sport, it's just a little bit different, man. Like there's like and obviously there's been some things in the rankings I've seen people complaining about. Like there's some guys they're saying are ranked too high. There's a couple cases of head-to-head opponents where the guy that lost is ranked above the guy that won. So there's no way to do it perfectly. But I think that what they've done is do their best to take out any subjectivity. But the problem is our sport, it's mixed martial arts. I think this is an Izzy quote. It's mixed martial arts and art is subjective in general. So it's pretty freaking hard to make it completely objective. You know what I mean? Like, yes, we all have winning and losing records. Like we all have a win-loss record, but we all fought different people and at different times, and there's different, like, there, you can win a fight in an extremely impressive way, or you can lose a fight in an extremely impressive way, and you can win a fight in a not so impressive way. So there's no way to do it perfectly, but I think this is a step in the right direction, and I think it's just about as good of a way to rank us as they can possibly do.
You know, we talked about the sacrifices that it's needed to be a professional fighter. Just a couple of days ago, Father's Day, here you are traveling across the world to Azerbaijan. You know, when you have to miss stuff like that, does that motivate you and make you want to win and stuff even more?
Yeah, for sure. I'll say with Father's Day, you know, that's like, I feel like it's, you know, they called me and said Happy Father's Day. I'll get home and we'll eat some pizza and go to the pool or something. So I'll be good. You know, the things that, like, I missed my daughter had her kindergarten graduation. I missed that. You know, she's both of my kids are doing soccer now. My oldest is doing swim team. I haven't seen any of it. My wife keeps sending me videos. My smallest daughter turns 2 at the end of August, and she's saying all these new words and stuff, and I already know when I get home that it's gonna be a wild experience, because they've grown a ton, and you know that with kids it just happens so freaking fast. And it's funny, my wife told me that my baby girl was she's seen some black dude at my older daughter's vacation Bible school, and she said, "Dada," and then my wife said, "No, that's not Dada," and then she said, "Where'd Dada go?" So I thought that was pretty funny. But at the end of the day, man, like, my family supports me. They know that this is what it takes for me to achieve my dream, and the fact that they support me in this dream means everything to me. And I got to go make the most of it.
Absolutely. All right, Juicebox. Last question for me, my friend. In a perfect world, what is the outcome June 27th when you make a return to the UFC against Abdul Rakhman Yakhyaev?
Dude, a perfect world is I'd knock him out with the first punch. I throw a jab and it just freaking decapitates him, dude. But you know, let's be realistic. It's going out there, getting a finish, and you know, coming home with a pocket full of cash and going to the beach in Florida this summer and having a good old time.
Absolutely. You know, with your background in basketball, if you get maybe a big knockout here in the future, could we ever see like a Sean O'Malley move? Remember when he knocked the dude out and then did the pull up into the J? Could we see something like that?
Dude, you totally might. And here's the thing: if I do it, it'll definitely look a lot smoother. You know, and here's the thing: O'Malley, I feel like he's probably not a bad basketball player. But you know, Juicebox was him back in the day. So I used to be like that on the court, man. And shoot, I still am, dude. You get me out there with these UFC guys, and they'll see what's up. I'm still waiting. You know, ever since I've been in the UFC, I said we're making a UFC basketball team and we're gonna go play the NFL. So you know, I'm still waiting on those dudes. Honestly, I've been rethinking that, because a lot of those guys probably played basketball too, and dear God, they're large and athletic. So maybe we're going to change up our call out, and we're going to call out the NHL, because I feel like we have a better chance with some Canadians, dude.
So if you ever go 1v1 against Phil Rowe, who wins?
Oh man, dude, Philly Fresh. It's funny because me and him have talked about this. He probably swears up and down that he wins, but I don't see how he stops me from getting to the basket. I'm a big dude, and you know, I can move pretty well. Especially, dude, you put a basketball in my hands and I move even better. So, well, I think I'm beating Philly Fresh. And like I said, dude, he can hoop too. He's probably the next best basketball player in the UFC. So, that's a very good title to have, and if I was him, I'd be proud of that.
There you go. Well, Julius, man, thank you so much for taking the time out of Fight Week. Really excited to see you do your thing, man. I'm wishing you the best, brother.
Dude, I appreciate you, my guy.
Absolutely. That's it for us, Dan Carl Perza. He is Juicebox. He's Julius Walker. You can watch him Azerbaijan, June 27th. Take it Abdul Rakhman Yakhyaev. Don't miss the fight, fans. It's going to be a fun one. Take care.
Let's go.